Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the summer season of Spirit Connections. I am Tiffany Rice, Spirit Medium, and today I'm excited because we have a guest that comes pretty much monthly, Miss Mandy Avery. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing? It's good to be back here once again in this beautiful studio.
Absolutely.
With the great staff that's here making the filming possible.
And you have a nice frilly shirt on. I like
Yes,
it.
I
I
do.
love the color.
Hides a multitude of things.
I just wear this little denim jacket.
Okay, fashion time is over.
Okay, whatever she says. So I wanted to have Mandy on because as friends, we always talk about how we can make communication easier. How can we make communication easier, whether it's from person to person or spirit to person? And what we do is we always provide information to people from spirit. So I want to talk a little bit to you about this. Now, for those of you guys at home, I don't know if you've experienced a reading or not, but I know with me, whenever I'm giving a reading, people always expect to hear certain information. And I know you and I have both gone over the fact
yes.
that it's merely we just pick up the phone and it's whoever is on the other end.
Right.
So do you want to elaborate a little bit with me on
What my guides have showed me, the easiest way to explain to someone who's never had a reading before that what a medium basically is in today's vernacular, we are answering machines. We are simply breathing answering machines where the spirit connects to us, gives us the message that we then give to those sitting for us. Now, the message is not always 100% clear due to differences in vibration, but most of the time it comes through the people understand it, and that's how it works. You don't ask your answering machine to dial out. You don't tell your answering machine what you want to hear when you come home and hit play, and that's how it is with mediums. We can only give you what is given to us in the best way that we can, the most clearly that we can.
And what else do we do with the answering machine? We write down the message.
Right. And then we erase it.
Yeah. And that's what we do. We erase it. So we deliver. We want you to write it down or tape record. Is this 1985? I feel like we're kind of going back with technology-wise. Yeah. Tape record and
right to record it. That's why smartphones are excellent devices nowadays. Most people have the capacity to record on their phones. What surprises me though is how sometimes spirit will turn the phone off.
All the time during a reading. All the time. It'll stop.
Yeah.
Now, going back to, again, everyone, when you receive a message, we just merely pick up the phone and it's the information that's been given to us. We have no control of who comes through, what the information is. However, it's usually information that you need to hear, not necessarily information that you want to hear. It's always good to have a pen and paper to write things down with so you remember it, because a lot of the impressions that we may give you or interpretations, it might not make sense right away, but if you hold on to it, it will.
Right. And we're not asking people to shoehorn the information in. We're not saying, I've got the name Ron here, and you go, oh, but my cousin Mary died, so that must be her. That's not what we're asking to do. Like, cousin Mary had a friend named Ron, so it must be cousin Mary. What we're asking you to do is to listen carefully to the information. Frequently, family members don't come in alone. There'll be others with them who will put in little spot appearances. Somebody's grandfather will stop by just to say, don't forget me, or thank you for looking through the pictures that you just did. Father's Day was just a week or so, back, whatever. It was a little while ago. And a lot of the information that came through had to do with people who were remembering loved ones on the paternal side of the families. And information that I was giving to people around that time had to do with them saying, thanks for remembering us, thanks for going the extra yard to talk to somebody about us so that we're not forgotten, and we appreciate it. So spirit not only comes through with evidence of who they are, they come through with evidence of what you have done since their passing, which is evidence of the continuity of life. It's evidence that they're still a part of your lives. They know what's going on. They see the little things that happen. When we think of them, they appreciate it. When we do something to acknowledge that they were part of our lives at some point in time, they truly appreciate that too, because that's the love that continues even after the transition.
Absolutely. It's like a ring. It can continually. What is that? Continuously.
Continuity, yes.
Trouble with words.
Right.
Words with friends.
Yes. So some of the things I know that you've experienced, some remarkable coincidence or synchronicities that occur with people where you go into a gallery reading and there's several people in the room not related to each other but will have the same names coming through, the same circumstances
Double
coming
connections.
through. Right. So how do you explain that to participants? Do you have an explanation for that?
How I usually explain, we all have common denominators, okay? So there is going to be that common ground, that common place, but it doesn't mean just because one person identifies and that other person that's across the room that also has someone by the name of John, I'll use that name, that doesn't mean that that message isn't for them as well. It could be the double connection. It could be they're both coming through at the same time.
Right.
So with a little bit more of the information that's given, we usually can figure it out as to what information goes to which person.
Right, right. We had the experience recently, participants in a circle, a spirit circle, where a name came through, and there were several people there that could identify with that particular name and with some of the occurrences, but what it came down to was the final name in the chain, where all of the information was then given to the one person and not the other. So it's one of those things where you have to listen as well. I firmly believe that it's the synchronicity of life where the common denominator is determined even though we're not aware of it at all. When you get combined names that are not a common, Mary Ann is fairly common. Frances Agnes is not. And when you have two disparate groups in a reading, in a gallery, where there's a Frances Agnes mother, but they're not connected to each other, so it's not two siblings that have the same mother. So you consider how peculiar that is and unique, but how it was brought together in order for us to hear that distinctly. So it's kind of interesting.
It is. And I think, again, when you're sitting in a gallery reading, you just want to hear from that loved one so bad. So we're very eager to say, oh, yep, I know Barbara. She was once, she was my aunt's
best friend,
sister, twice removed, and so forth. But sometimes I think before you say anything, let it go just a little bit further and see if it really can relate to you. If it doesn't, even though you do know Barbara, there might be someone that has an immediate relative or immediate best friend that is trying to come through as well.
I was just thinking back in my mind to how amused I was at one time to be in the audience of a gallery, and the reader, the medium who was at the podium said, I have a gentleman here who passed suddenly, and 4 people raised their hand before they had any more of the information regarding that gentleman and how he was connected to anyone. And I think to myself, they really were eager to have it be for them because they needed so much to hear from them. And that's one of the things that I want to bring up as well. Relax into this. Listen to everything that's coming through, because you don't want to miss what is for you when you're concentrating on what is not for you.
That's right. That's right. That's a very good point.
It's difficult because we want to hear, we want to know, we want to have that experience, but you need to really listen. If somebody says, this gentleman wore a cowboy hat all the time, don't say, I've got a picture of my dad wearing it once. The person wears the cowboy hat all the time, is known for wearing the cowboy hat, not known for putting it on as part of a costume or part of a thing that they were doing. You really need, as an audience, as somebody waiting to hear from a loved one, you need to listen. On the other hand as well, don't say that can't possibly be who I think it is because the medium said they were around 5'11" and this person was 5'9".
That happens all the time. They get stuck. They get stuck with names, or another thing too.
Right.
Is, well, you said Frank, so it has to be Frank, and I say,
sounds like.
Sounds like. It could be Francis, Francine, Franny. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
Frank, but it sounds like. But it's true. Everybody seems to get stuck on certain
Right.
pieces of it where they can't let it
Yeah.
go past.
The other thing I do have to give, how to explain this? Oftentimes the information is coming through so quickly and so machine gun-like that there'll be 4 things given all at once, 4 pieces of information given all at once about one individual, and the person receiving the information hears the first part of it, maybe the second part, and doesn't hear the third and fourth part because they're still focused on the beginning of it. So that's difficult as well. And I say to people, just listen to the whole thing and then pick up on it, because I'll be standing there saying, I've got the person with the D name that's coming through saying that they're associated with the person we were just talking about, and they'll say, no, there's no D name, and then you find out, yes, there was Danny associated with James, and James wanted to say, you just saw Danny last week, and you were talking about him.
That just happened last night at my gallery
Did
reading.
it? Yeah,
Same
that
thing.
type of thing where it's like, you have to just breathe, you have to breathe. And Tiffany and I are talking about doing gallery readings. We do individual readings as well. And one of the things that I will tell people, gallery readings are good if you just need validation that your loved ones are there. But if you need an extensive connection, or you're so deep in grief at this time, a gallery reading really isn't all that you might wish it to be. Gallery readings are not for extensive connections. They're not for everyone in a family group to receive individual messages. Gallery readings are just to validate they're around you. This is what they're telling you. Please know that they're there. The signs that they showed you are from them, and that's it.
And sometimes the messages might not come through because the message isn't meant for all these other ears to hear.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So keep that in mind as well. I think that if you guys can just take a pen and paper and just write down everything we just said,
Right.
rewind it and play it again.
Right.
But it's true. It's something, and again, with a gallery reading, you're looking at 30 plus people, most likely, and just like Mandy said, not everyone may not receive a message.
Right.
So it's what you are looking for. What is your point of going?
Right. And as I said, a lot of people will attend gallery meetings for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're usually less expensive than having a one-on-one reading with a medium. There are some mediums that are no longer doing individual readings because their schedules are so full. Oftentimes, people will go to a gallery reading sort of as a lark, like, okay, let's do this. We'll stop by and do this. Or they've felt their loved ones around and want validation that what they're feeling really is their loved ones around. Those are all very, very good reasons for going to a gallery event, although I do have to stop at the entertainment value of it, because we don't do this as entertainment. We do this because loved ones want those that are still here on the earth plane to know that they're still around. It's a knowledge. It's not just a, oh, that was fun, we were laughing so hard, we didn't hear everything, and oh my goodness. And the other thing is, alcohol and spirit work do not mix. And I'm not talking about the mediums. They know better than to drink and do this. I'm talking about the people receiving the messages. If you've had a couple of drinks and your information receptors are a little bit slow, you're not going to get the full benefit of connection to your loved ones.
Right, because it lowers the vibration, and I know we've talked about it here on Spirit Connections before, but whether it's alcohol or anything...
Non-prescription drugs.
Exactly. It can lower the vibration. And you don't want that. You want everything to be clear. Being a reader myself, I want to make sure I eat healthy, eat clean, try my best. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect on the eating. Believe me, I love chocolate. I love a lot of things that probably aren't the cleanest of foods, but you want to try to keep a healthy diet because you're working with energy.
Right.
You want it to run smoothly. And when you are feeding your body with, whether it's alcohol or, heavy foods, sugary foods, that can kind of block energy in a way.
Right.
It just slows things
it makes
down.
it more difficult. It makes it more difficult. When we talk about the vibrations, if you think about the old style vinyl records, there were records that played at 33, records that played at 78, records that played at 45. If you consider that our normal walking around the earth energy is at this vibration, when you're in grief, your vibrations dip. They slow down. When, as a medium, we work and meditate and work with spirit, we raise our vibrations. Spirit vibrations are up here, and they'll bring theirs close, but there's always a gap. It's never a complete connection, except I think through transmedium, but even that is like a really crazy energy. So if you think about the vibrations shifting and changing, there's still that gap. And if, as a medium, you're not doing the best you can to raise your vibration, then it gets more and more difficult to hear what they're saying, to connect truly with what's going on from the higher side. And they cannot lower theirs too low because it's impossible for them.
Right.
So that's what we talk about with the vibrations. So if you've had a few drinks and you're wondering why your grandmother isn't talking to you, consider the fact that maybe Grandma wouldn't talk to you even if she was still here if you had a few drinks.
Oh, maybe she'd be joining you.
Oh, maybe she would be, but oftentimes
My
that's not the case.
I know.
Oftentimes that's not the case.
So basically the whole point is try to, you know, what to expect when you're expecting a reading. Bring pen and paper, bring a recorder. I always say try not to take things so literal. Try to get out of our human head, because our human side, our logical side, sometimes takes away from the messages that are being delivered.
I try to explain to people that spirit goes through my brain like a Rolodex going, okay, this fits. We'll show her this so that she understands what we're trying to talk about. Long time ago, case in point, I was standing next to a young man who had just finished his first merchant marine voyage, and I knew he was up in the Pacific Northwest, up along the coast of Washington and Alaska, up that way. And I suddenly was shown a picture of Mount Denali, like a postcard of Mount Denali. Now, I don't know how many people have ever seen them. I've received postcards from travelers for Mount Denali, so it was very easy to identify what it was. And I said, oh, did you take a picture of Mount Denali when you went by it? And he says, we didn't go by Mount Denali. And I said, oh, I'm being shown Mount Denali. And he says, the name of the ship that I was on was the Denali. So his loved ones on the higher side were trying to get me to tell him that they were with him on the ship. So they showed me the Denali, and being new at this and kind of eager, I didn't stop and say to those on the higher side, what do you want me to do with this information? I just said, oh, he must have gone past Mount Denali because I'm seeing this beautiful picture of it. So I've learned that what spirit does is they'll go through to experiences that I've had, places that I've been, things that I've seen or heard or read about or whatever, to pull out an image that they can fasten into my brain so I understand what they're trying to tell me. It's kind of intriguing.
It is, and I always say that we have different databases too.
Oh yes, we do, because we all have unique experiences.
Exactly, exactly, and so keep that in mind as well. And I agree with you, being a reader, sometimes I'll see images and I'll say, okay, this is what I'm being shown, and the person that's receiving the message will sometimes say, no, that doesn't make sense. And I'll say, okay, well, and I'll usually repeat myself, and then it'll say, usually someone will say, okay, well, I see where you're getting this because it's actually this. So that's why I always say that our interpretations could be wrong.
Right.
Being human, we put a little spin on things
where
we call it our own, and at the same time, we have to kind of get away
Keep
from doing
ourselves
that.
out of it, right?
Yeah.
Don't think it, don't edit it, don't delete it, don't censor it, just give it as you receive it. So some of the things that were shown, like I know that some mediums only see things. I know some mediums only hear things. I know some mediums only feel things. I get all of it because they'll use whatever they can to get me to say what they want me to say. And so I have to be careful with how they're giving it to me, and I have to really go back and ask them, what do you want me to do with this? How do you want me to present this? How do you want... And I know at the beginning when we first start doing this, it's rather slow. It's rather... the connection seems slow. We get one piece, then another piece, then another piece. Now it just seems to come in all at once. But I was talking with someone about this the other day, and I think that all of that was always there. We just didn't see it, and now that we've been working in it, we see all of it. So
Right.
it seems to be coming faster, but I think it was always there to begin with. It's just our perception of it and what's going on.
And the more we do this, the more we learn too. We are only human. We do misinterpret things. Nobody is perfect. That's why we wanted to tell you that
Oh, yes.
it is. We just pick up the phone and we try our best to deliver that message, deliver the information that you need to hear.
Right.
I repeat myself so many times, information that you need to hear, not necessarily information
What
that
you want to hear. That brings to mind an incident with a client who came to me for a personal reading, and I brought through the information that I was given, and she validated the information I was given, and when the reading was finished, she said, I'm so disappointed in this reading. And of course, I was like, I'm so sorry. But she was disappointed because she wanted an apology from someone. And I said, I'm sorry that you didn't get what you wanted to hear. I can only give you what I've been given, and I can't make them say something that they're not ready to say, or they may be showing you in another way that you're not understanding because you're still carrying all of the pain and anger around with you. And that leads me to something else, which is off the subject of the readings, but I've been shown over and over and over again, to the point where I cannot doubt this, offering forgiveness to those on the higher side for things that they did while they were here that hadn't been taken care of prior to their passing. The pains that we've experienced from those who have passed over without the amendment being done to it, without the healing starting. You really need to offer forgiveness from your heart to them for something that can no longer be changed. Nothing else can be done about it. Offer forgiveness. This is not saying forgetting that it happened to you. This is saying we can't do anything else about this now. I forgive the situation. I forgive the pain. I forgive it. Because you will find that by doing that, you'll find yourself feeling cleaner and clearer and lighter. And those on the higher side need that forgiveness in order for them to proceed with what they need to do. When we cross over, there's still work that needs to be done. It's all not playing golf every day and sitting by the pool. There's work that we have to do to evolve ourselves further as spirits on the higher side, and that work gets bogged down when we're not given forgiveness.
We also have to allow ourselves to let go of ego as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's our ego that allows us to feel these feelings of resentment and anger and grudge and so on.
Guilt.
Guilt, yeah. Huge guilt. I come across guilt all the time in readings from the recipient.
Not from the higher
not from
side.
Spirit, but from the recipient. A lot of times they have that sense of guilt. And
what's the message usually from the higher side to those guilt-ridden people? What's the message?
It's usually
let go.
Let go.
Let it go.
We were just singing the Frozen song, Let It
Let it go.
But I always say to everybody, it's like Vegas. What happens here stays here. Okay, so whether someone passes from an injury, or you weren't talking to someone, or someone was, a tragic passing, if you didn't get a chance to say goodbye to someone, all of these things, they may acknowledge that just as a form of validation. However, they're not holding on to it, and they don't want you to hold on to it either.
One of the biggest messages I've received from the higher side, there's no judgment. There's no anger. There's no pain. There is only love. There is only love. And they want us to let go of the guilt. They want us to let go of the pain. They want us to let go of the judgment. They really are trying to help us, because our job here as souls is to remember the perfection of how we started. And we can't remember the perfection of how we started if we're hanging on to all of the negatives.
Absolutely.
So they want us to know that they're there. They want us to know that they're aware of our pain, and they want to help us let go of the pain. The loss doesn't stop. The pain of the loss doesn't stop. We only learn how to work within that pain. But it's like a wound also. You can't keep ripping the scab off of it to see if it's healed yet either. You can't keep going back and touching it to see if it's healed. What you have to do is just observe. How are you doing? What are you doing? They're sending us signs all the time to encourage us to keep on the path that we're on for healing, the path that we're on for love. The path is always straight ahead. You might stray a little bit, but they want us to continue towards the love.
Absolutely, and we just have to pay attention. And it can be something that is so small. It doesn't have to be something that is huge, a sign that's going to jump out in front of us. It can be something so small. I've been actually receiving signs myself recently, and it's uncanny. I'll ask, and I'll set my intentions for my highest and greatest good, and I'll ask them, okay, I need help. And I'm very specific when I ask certain questions. Well, that kind of goes hand in hand, asking certain questions and being specific. And usually within a day, I'll receive a message.
Right. Most people know that those on the higher side send pennies and dimes. They'll be in the most ridiculously odd places. My mother sends me quarters because it's specific to us that she was collecting the commemorative quarters, and she'll send me quarters that are absolutely specific to situations. But I recently encountered this beautiful woman in a gallery reading, and I told her that an individual was the one that had been sending her dimes, and she broke down sobbing, and my heart went out to her because I was like, oh my gosh, what, do I need to get help for her right now? Come to find out, she had been finding dimes for weeks prior to this event and kept saying, where are these GD dimes coming from? Here's another one. I can't believe I've got another one. And it was the loved one that she was missing so much that was sending her the dimes and said to her specifically, I'm the one sending you the dimes. It's, you have to love the healing that comes through from this stuff.
And that's what it is. It's to provide comfort. We'll never say that we're therapists, but
no.
we can provide comfort for the amount of time.
Right.
Whether it's
right. It's
a
allowing,
short time,
it's allowing spirit to come through to give them the
Absolutely.
comfort. It's not so much us as the answering machines.
Right. It's not us. We're just part of your story.
We're
now,
your
too.
answering machine. Hit the button, hit play.
Exactly. But I love it. My dad shows me pennies. And it's always when something's going wrong in my life, or
Right.
there's an issue going on in my life, my dad will always toss a penny and I'll be able to see it.
Right.
So.
Also, when you find these coins, look at the dates on them.
Oh, I do,
Frequently
yes.
the dates are specific to an event, specific, like the year of the passing, the year of the birth of someone. It's not, and once again, I'm not asking people to shoehorn. Please don't try to squeeze this into someplace. Don't put the square peg in the round hole. Pay attention. Pay attention.
Always. And trust. Trust
Right.
it. Just trust it and go with it. And on that note, I want to thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming on the show again, Mandy. Again, Mandy Avery, Spirit Medium. How can people get in touch with you?
I have a website, From Spirit to You, and all the information is on the website. That's From Spirit to You. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And we will see you next time, guys. Have a great night.